Well, good evening. Welcome to this meeting of the Scrutiny Budget and Performance Panel. I'm Councillor David Howarth, the Chair of the Scrutiny Committee, and we have committee members in the Civic Centre along with the necessary officer support. The meeting is being live streamed via YouTube and will be available on the Council's website. Some housekeeping for those here in the Civic Centre. There are no fire drills planned, and if the alarm goes off, then please leave by the emergency exits at the back of the room and congregate on the car park. Can you please turn off mobile phones and switch your microphones off when not speaking, which is a good reminder to myself. So now moving on to, for those joining us via Microsoft Teams, please remain muted and indicate at the appropriate time if you would like to speak, and I will bring you in. Moving on to the agenda, apologies for absence. We have apologies from Councillor Will Adams and Councillor Colin Coulton. Do we have any declarations of interest? No, in which case, moving on to item 3, minutes of the meeting on Monday, the 15th of November 2021 of the Scrutiny Budget and Performance Panel. Could we approve those as a correct record?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you. That takes us on to item 4, matters arising from previous Scrutiny Budget and Performance Panel meetings. That's been circulated as a supplementary agenda, and the panel might like to remove all of those recommendations that have been accepted and implemented, if we can agree to that. We've also received the following update. Darren, could you take us through that?
Thank you, Chair. At the last meeting, you recommended that the panel requests that the plans to improve the time taken to process new housing benefit claims are expedited and additional resources be provided. The Director and Cabinet Member have accepted that recommendation. The implementation is in progress, and the comments provided are that a single operating model has been accelerated and recruitment to the vacant posts are well advanced. Additional temporary resources have also been agreed. Council approved the Council Tax Support Scheme changes, and the scheme will now be automated. The first stage of the automation will be implemented in April 2022, and therefore the performance will increase as a result of this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Can we note that? Yeah. That takes us to item 5, which is the Corporate Strategy Quarterly Monitoring Report, Quarter 3. And if I can welcome Councillor Paul Foster, the leader of the council, supported by Gary Hall, the chief executive, who is posing as Vicky Willett according to the sign in front of him. But we do have Vicky, who's dialed in remotely. And Howard. Right, if I could start then. On page 9, paragraph 17, reference is made to the digitisation of planning. Has this not already been done with the planning portal? And what are the recent issues with regards not being able to view representations on the portal? And does this impact on the validity and credibility of deciding planning applications if all the background information and evidence is not available?
Thank you, Chair, for that question. So there are 2 parts to that. The first one is the digitisation, and there are 2 elements to it. There's the digitisation that you refer to, where you can make the application online, and then there's the process of digitisation as the application moves through the system, and our ability to track and manage and apply resources to particular applications as we work through the process. That's a different piece of software that does that. Again, if you might recall that we brought a paper before Cabinet some time ago that talked about all the software applications that we needed to update. That will be as a result of us being able to update that piece of software. That will enable us to have a system that means we can track and trace and manage all applications digitally. It helps with performance management as well, because we can see the throughput of each officer as well, how many applications they're doing, etc., etc., etc. So, so that's why that's another piece that we need to add to the portfolio, and we're on with doing that. The second question was around the usefulness and the workings of the portal. I have to admit, I don't really know the answer to that question at this moment in time, David. So I'll have to come back to you after the meeting. I don't have that level of detail around those particular issues.
Right, okay, that would be helpful, because certainly the feedback we're getting from the public as much as members is that when they go in there and try to look at other objections or other letters of support, or when they try to put letters of support on there in one application recently, they just can't get in, and all of the information isn't there. So if you're a member of the planning committee, while you get a report from the officers which summarises all of the submissions, it does help if you can actually read them yourself. So.
Yeah, I think the challenge with it is it's a national planning portal. So it's not a portal that's owned by South Ribble Council. So you get the link into it, but it's a national portal. So we are at the behest or the whim of those people who the national planning team that run that portal. But that's not me to say that we can't raise those issues with them, and we'll pick up the minutes and. I'll get you a response, but I think the likely outcome from that will be that we'll have to raise it with the National Planning Portal team.
Karen.
Thank you. Good evening. My question is about the delivery year one of the joint digital strategy. The project has been categorised as amber, and with all the recent problems and issues with IT and our experience as members, we feel as though this should be red. Please, could you talk us through the rationale for it being amber when the commentary refers to delays?
Well, firstly, Karen, respectfully, I disagree. And just so we're clear here, this isn't a political amber. This is completed by the officers when they go through a detailed review of each of the projects. Also, please remember that this is October, November, December 21 monitoring report. And so a lot of the changes as well that were then subsequently made to ICT will be reported in the next quarterly report, not on this one. And whilst there's been some challenges in the delivery of the ICT, fundamental changes have taken place. Please remember that. The service has still functioned well. And so you've got to take a judgment, and the judgment of the officers is that the project's amber, and I accept that. I don't have anything to add to that, Gary.
Yeah, so I think there are two real elements to this. There's the upgrading of some of the technology that the council uses, which we've had to do, particularly around the security elements of the council, because you recall I'd mentioned perhaps on a number of occasions that there were some gaps and risks contained in our software around keeping people from hacking into the system out. That's all been resolved. We're on with upgrading the software in relation to the internet, because that can be a bit hit and miss sometimes. But the core and some of the software applications that we've just spoke about. So we've just spoke about the planning one. We're on with that. There's a reference in your earlier comment, or the comment that you received from the director in relation to the benefit system changes as well. So all those things are ongoing. So there have been, and I think the report references quite a number of actions are ongoing and moving forward. The key element, and you recall this, was around the standardisation of the kit and upgrade of the kit. And in the report that came to Cabinet and to Council, what it said was we want to procure it, and we agreed a procurement route that has been done. But in that report, it also referenced that actually we are at the mercy of the market, and the delivery of the kit itself. And there are some challenges with that because of the lack of access to the chips that go in the computers and that. So we're not just talking about computers here. We're talking about desktops, we're talking about laptops, we're talking about iPads, we're talking about telephones. I can't remember the exact number, but it's well over 1,000 pieces of kit that we've got to kind of upgrade and actually replace. So the reason we put it as amber is because we had aimed to do it by now.
Yeah.
But the market is driving when we're going to get that stuff. We're still told that will be in the next three months or so. We'll get that stuff. We've just signed off some for the leader, or about to sign off some additional resourcing into that area, because it's a big job to get all those pieces of kit ready. And of course, if you use the staff you've currently got, then all the other things don't get done. So we are going to put some additional resources into it as well, a number of technicians that will enable us to get the rollout quick, because we do realise, and again, we do realise that this is one of the issues that, in particular, staff and members get frustrated with, and it's very easy to forget that these are inherent problems. They've been here for some time. We're trying to fix them. It will take a little bit of time. We're not exactly where we wanted to be, and the amber reflects it. But we've done a lot of the key pieces of work. We're now just waiting for a lot of the kit to arrive, and then we can get the rollout done, and that's why it's amber.
So can I just add to that, Karen, as well? I think it's important, because you obviously said you think it should be red, and I'd be interested to understand why you think it should be red. And as I always say, please write to me with specific examples, and I can check them, because the fundamental frontline services that the residents experience with our ICT, the website's always up and running, the telephone systems are up and running now, the ModGov system's always up and running, Outlook's up and running, the rollout of all the members' hardware's taking place. So I would be genuinely pleased to see if you could send me some details of specific issues that you have or you have concerns about, then we can address them, because what we do have to separate, please, is the general ICT provision of the authority and the issues that we had with some of the staffing, because they are completely separate issues, and the issues with the staffing didn't impact the overall service performance, and they are separate, Karen.
Yeah, so in the next quarterly report, we expect to see some improvements in the service. No, I just feel as though a lot of my members, they have a lot of grievances over their IT pads not working or whatever, or not being able to get in touch with officers. So it's just a general thing more than specifics, but there are the very similar problems that my members are coming across. Okay.
One sec, but what would, if you remember as well, with particularly the iPads, and again, this is, how do I say this? Some members do struggle with the technology, but that isn't necessarily a problem with the technology, Karen. And so we implemented the clinics before every council meeting and cabinet meeting. So again, if we need to do more, we will of course do more. But we just need to be told. If we're told what the problems are, we'll do everything we possibly can to deal with them.
I think the officers have come back, with and solved the problems, and sometimes they have been technical problems. Sometimes they have been not being able to use the iPads or whatever. But the officers have been very good in trying to sort out problems. Okay.
Yeah, so again, the root of the challenge for officers has been the different types of kit, because you're not quite sure how a piece of kit should connect when you're using different pieces of kit. So that's really the purpose of standardisation. It should be much easier for us to identify what the problem is, fix it. We'll be running off one system, one piece of connectivity. It will be much easier. So that should improve over time. The other thing that we're waiting to kind of implement, and this has been on the back of the ICT restructure, is, as I kind of just referenced there, I can't remember the exact number, but it's well over 1,000 pieces of kit that we've got, and almost 1,000 staff between the two councils. So there's a recognition that we need a more structured, and what we use the word professional, more structured approach to dealing with particular issues. So we will be implementing a help desk. We will be implementing some new technology that enables us to track when somebody raises an issue, how that gets resolved, those outstanding. Because you can imagine, if you've got no system to do it, even now with all the pieces of kit we've got, it's a real challenge. So again, this is again, just kind of look forward a little bit. I would hope within the next 3 months you'll see big improvements in that, in the way that we do our business, particularly around ICT and our ability to resolve issues.
If I could just come in there, because the offer of some more training would be welcome. I think I was told recently I was one of the few members that uses Teams to actually contact officers. And if that is the case, then clearly people may need to a bit of a nudge and a bit of a training to find out how to do it. So, Colin.
Yeah, this question is probably just an extension of Karen's, really. It deals with the staffing issue. Recruitment issues were identified in the last performance monitoring report. What has been done to recruit to the team, and what contingencies are in place should this not be resolved?
Just quickly before Gary, we've dealt with the restructures been completed, and as Sim said the other day when we were speaking with the staff, Gary, that they're actively recruiting into the positions, but there's, as Gary will probably tell you now, that there is a massive challenge in recruiting to every position within local government at the moment, particularly these highly skilled positions that we're talking about now. But we're on with it, Colin. We're recruiting as fast as we possibly can, and as Gary said, there's a paper literally just been approved with a significant amount of additional resource to supplement the staff whilst we go through this.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah. So as Paul said, the issue around recruitment and retention was a wider issue. It wasn't necessarily just ICT related, but ICT is the immediate issue for us because we need to resolve that. Encouraged by the number of applications and the applications we're getting, so it's looking pretty positive. The longer term issue is how we recruit and retain our staff, and I'm going to just invite Vicky in because she's on with a piece of work now that will set out how we're going to do that. So I'll let Vicky just explain what we're planning to do and when you're going to see that, because I think it's fairly soon, isn't it, Vicky?
Yes, it is. Thank you, Gary. So we have already started doing some work to improve our approaches to recruitment. So we now use a new recruitment platform. So previously we used an internal system. We now use a different platform that gives us a much greater reach to a wider range of candidates, and we've seen a much better take up from that. So, for example, one role that had 7 applicants, I think, we advertised using the new platform, and it achieved, over 70 applicants. So that's the difference that we're getting between the approach that we've taken. So that's something that we've done straight away. Beyond that, we're going to be doing a piece of work through our people strategy to look at how we target key sectors and ensure that we've got skills in place right across the organisation to meet current gaps and future skills gaps. So how are we planning for that? Looking at our succession planning, working with services and teams to come up with plans and strategies so that we do have that pipeline of skills coming through the organisation. And that'll include working on some of the recent investment through the budget, which was to develop an apprentice and graduate programme. So that will be really important going forward because that'll give us that pipeline of skills into kind of key areas. So that's something that we'll be looking to get in place ideally for this year. So you'll hopefully start to see that coming through. So we are doing a whole range of things as part of our recruitment processes, and we're also looking at our internal systems as well. So how do we make the process more efficient for managers so that when they do identify a recruitment need, it's as quick as possible to get people into the organisation.
Thanks for that. And are we saying then that those 9 vacant posts will be filled by April or not? Are we on track?
So again, Colin, remember that this was a report as of the end of December. Yeah. So we're now into March. Yeah, so it is a backward-looking report. So if they've not been filled, the team will be well advanced in filling those positions. Yeah.
Okay, if I can take you to page 10, paragraph 19. 40% of service requests received via self-service are received via self-service channels. What impact is this performance having on the number of telephone calls and visits to offices? And how confident are we that the self-service channels are fit for purpose and make it easier for customers to access our services online? Well,
before Gary comes in, Chair, what I will say is that I thought that So a lot of the self-service provision within the council historically hasn't been particularly good. I found it very, very clunky, whatever the word is. So I think that the wholesale improvement, is pleasing. But I'll let Gary give you the actual detail of it, because it was quite a lot of work that we needed to do.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. So we use a piece of software. I won't mention it because it might. It's out in the big wide world, so I won't mention it. But we use a piece of software which I don't think is actually fit for purpose. We've amended the front end of the website, so it is easier to navigate. But once you get into the back end, which is the process end, that's it's not the word I'd use, but it needs to be improved. So we this again is part of the year one upgrade. So we need to use a piece of technology that is much easier and gives a much richer experience to the customer. Again, I know that ASIM is practically on the verge of organising that and agreeing that. So again, it's just part of the improvement programme. So it's not fit for purpose, you're right, but again, it's part of the programme of works to improve how we currently do things. The current challenges in relation to customer services are part of the reason that we are experiencing some of those challenges is that some of the things that you might anticipate may have been done and the way that we do things might have been completed and done in a particular way aren't. So the example I would give is the garden waste scheme. So I suspect most people here, perhaps those who subscribe to it will know this, but we don't have a direct debit scheme for garden waste. So you don't have an automatic renewal, which means that at times of renewal, basically everybody is ringing up to renew their subscription. Okay. So one of the things we need to do, and we're on with, and this is all part of the improvement programme, is to implement a direct debit scheme so that people's renewal is automatic, and that will stop thousands of calls. The challenges we've been having in customer services, all of which are resolved now. We've got the latest stats, and we fixed some of those things now. Are related to just the massive increase in volume as a result of garden waste, recovery as well, because if you recall during COVID, we took a decision that we wouldn't seek to recover funds or recover debt, particularly on council tax for obvious reasons. So what's happening is people are now in the recovery process, they are ringing up, because when you get a letter, you generally ring up. It's taken a little longer because you're not just dealing with short-term debt, you're dealing with longer-term debt to resolve those things. People are on the phone a bit longer, which causes the queue. In addition to that, the bills have recently gone out as well. Council tax bills, benefit letters, etc., have just got out. So we've had a kind of little bit of a perfect storm, I think. But I think the last stats that I saw last Friday, was it, Paul? I think the abandonment rate was 4%. Yep. Something like that, and the average call time was
minute 40 something.
About just over a minute. So kind of much improved. The biggest challenge and the biggest change that we'll see is that what we want to do is to redistribute the way that we process things and the way that we do things. We've changed the model. So the customer service model, which South Ribble currently has, where the customer brings in, they get somebody to answer the call, they'll take some details from you. Not all the calls are resolved at the first point of contact. It's passed into the back office for processing. So the new model will enable us to use all the resources we've got in the council by routing calls into those individuals. So we'll have far more people, and we'll prioritise calls. So we'll have far more people with the ability to answer calls. And what we've had to do in the short term, because again, this is another piece of technology that needs updating. There's a common theme emerging here, isn't there? Another piece of technology that needs updating. At the minute, we can't route calls from the contact centre to the back office. Yeah, so we've had to move staff from where they're currently working into the front office. Yeah, and that's resolved a lot of the issues in relation to call times and those kinds of things. The new technology, which will be available in June, will enable us to route calls through the back office, manage call volumes, route to individuals in the back office, prioritise calls, etc., etc. The task for us then, of course, is to make sure that all the processing things that we need to do, in addition to answering the calls, we keep on top of those as well. So fundamental changes in the way we do things are due to be made in the first quarter of the year.
Can I just come back in there? Because the whole point of this question wasn't about answering telephone calls. It was preventing those telephone calls from happening.
Yeah.
And if you can't go onto the website and order a brown bin or order a green bin or check whether you've even paid your garden waste renewal or go in and renew it, that's then you give up and start pick the phone up.
Yeah.
So the question is, if we can't access the self-service provision on the internet, isn't that just overloading the telephone service?
No, David, you're right. Demand management is key to enabling a really efficient phone service and channel shift. Absolutely right. No, I think what I said was, perhaps I haven't explained myself properly, is that the current software that we use to process things once you get into the website is not fit for purpose. I think I said that we're going to implement a new piece of technology that will enable us to do that. We'll do all the things that you've talked about there. And again, that's just part of the programme of change that we're on with at the minute. But yeah, absolutely, we need to stop people ringing in where they don't necessarily need to and make it easier for the customer. Absolutely.
Yeah, again, on self-service channels, mention is made about reviewing the channels to map out the highest volumes. Why is this only being done now? Has it not been done previously or even as part of the development of the digital strategy?
Yeah, so I think, it might have been done some time ago, Colin, but, the reality is I could probably tell you now what the most volumes of call is. So it's bins, yeah, it's paying your council tax or getting a reminder, and it's your benefits. Those are the three biggest areas of call volumes in any, I would suspect, in any district council, to be honest. But I think some of that has been done, Colin. I think some of it is. I think what this is suggesting is there's a nuance to it. So you might know how many calls you get, but what you need really to understand is why are people ringing up? It's back to David's point. Why are you really ringing up when actually you could do it this way, or you could do it online, or you could access that piece of information online? And if you understand what's driving those calls, then you can fix the problem. So I think that's what it's really referring to. It's the detail of it and the nuance.
Can I just add, Chair, as well, just a quick point? What's happened here, Colin, as well, and I mentioned it in another meeting, that there was a decade of underinvestment in the hardware and the software. And so what we've mapped out this process of, if you remember, 18 months ago, we started the change of the website. So the website's now fit for purpose. And then what basically Gary's saying is we're starting to bolt in these back of office additions so that you can do it. But we needed to walk before we could run. So there's an iteration as we work through, but it should improve very, very quickly as we bolt all these additional items on.
And you have another question?
I do have another question. Yeah, we're talking about quite a bit of feedback on issues with IT and customer services for members. Does any mystery shopping take place or other validation of the service provide to our customers when they contact or interact with us?
Just what I'd say first, Colin, there's a lot of noise, perhaps, about customer services and IT from some councillors, but we're not getting a lot of negative feedback from our residents. The system's been maintained. We've had this slight glitch in the IT with customer services that we've worked through the last two weeks. But for example, I know Councillor Bielinski-Gelder, we go into Gateway quite often, and we have a look ourselves, and we speak to the staff and we see how things are going. But the mystery shopper, I think we have done that before, haven't we?
Yeah, so we at South Ribble, we have achieve this thing called the Customer Service Charter, which is a kind of quality type badge of honour, I suppose, in relation to that. I have to say that if I'm honest, when I look at that, it looks like the processes you follow, I'm not sure it's very qualitative, if I'm honest. So, and I'm not, I'm not trying to undermine what we do. I think, as Paul says, the proof of the pudding is really how your customers feel about it. There has been a glitch. I say, we've got to remember as well, and I think this was explained in the Shared Services Joint Committee, because we wanted to protect all staff as we went through the change process. We have had a number of vacancies right across the two councils, not just South Ribble, across the two councils for quite a period of time. As Paul explained, we're through that now, and we're on with filling those vacancies. And I know a lot of interviews, I think, have taken place in the last week or so, and so I'm anticipating that those will be filled. Access to the apprentices and all those kinds of things do take a little bit of time, and I know members are anxious to get on with things. Do take a little bit of time to organise, but I think we're heading in the right direction.
Can I just come in there? I'm sorry, Paul, but I think you're being a bit defensive, suggesting that some councillors might be sort of stirring this, for want of a better word, because my own personal experience, and Colin mentioned earlier before the meeting that he'd been number 7 in the queue. Was that today? I mean, the mystery shopping thing, I think I mentioned this at Scrutiny last Thursday, that when I read that we got a target of 90 seconds to answer the phone, I just thought, I'll try that, just pick the phone up. 2 minutes, 20 seconds. So if I'm just randomly picking the phone up to do my own mystery shopping, what are we basing these figures on to say that, I think, Gary, you said the phone's being answered in a minute, was it? Because
as of last Friday,
we've got all the stats.
That's not our experience. And
we've got all the stats. There was a glitch. There was a glitch, Chair. It wasn't good. There was a period of about 10 to 14 days where there was a real struggle for a number of reasons, IC and staff related. But we've worked through it. The chief executive and the team have supplemented the Gateway team, and we've got through it. But we do have, I know Aniela looks at the data every single day. We've got all the data that we and we can. Well, that's what we judge performance on, and you'll obviously see that data as well.
They're average times, David. So within that you will get ups and downs. So that is the average. So I'm not saying that everybody gets answered within that time frame. That's the average. Okay. The part of the challenge was, and it's really interesting that we haven't got many members here today because of COVID. We did second because the call volumes were right down in the contact centre during COVID. We weren't doing recovery. We weren't getting the calls. We utilised a lot of those staff to do COVID work. Yeah. And you will know now that we're only just getting back to something like normal. So a number of staff who were seconded out to do COVID work are back in the contact centre. That's why we're seeing some improvements. The two councils committed to putting some additional resources into to achieve those targets, David, that you talked about. I think, as I explained, we're still in the recruitment phase. We're not quite there yet. So whilst we're not achieving it yet, the plans are in place to do that. I think, I'd ask you to judge us maybe in 2 to 3 months as to whether we're back on and achieving that target.
If I can come in, Chair, I think it's worth having another look at in the next. When do we have the next one of these? Is it the next quarter? Yeah. I mean, today the message my wife got was, due to unforeseen circumstances, we're experiencing long delays, but I'm not sure what those circumstances are. But perhaps it is because there's a lot of calls due to the tax bills have just gone out or whatever. So how can we deal with that? Because we know the tax bills are going out at that time, etc.
Yeah, just you're right. So firstly, the next quarterly report will contain all the stats on the current challenges that we've had. But what really hacks me off is things like you've all heard about the £150 rebate that the government have announced has just fallen in our lap big time. I think I mentioned this at the Scrutiny Committee last week. So we're going to be inundated with calls now because if you haven't got a direct debit set up for your council tax, but still a lot of residents don't. High number do, but a significant number don't. And they're significant number of areas we're actually trying to target to give the money to, and so it means more telephone calls, Colin, which is just really unfortunate. But as I say, the challenges that the ICT and the Gateway team have faced over the last quarter will clearly be reported in the next report, and we'll pull up in more detail.
Okay, Karen.
Thank you, Chair. My question is on page 12 about thriving communities. Many of the projects and examples we read here are young people related, which is a very important issue and demographic for our area. But what about the wider population of South Ribble? And could we see some examples of this?
Absolutely. I think they've reported this time on young people, and because there's a couple of particular projects that they've picked out, but I think all the committee would understand the council with the community hubs, they support a wide range of the community, all elements of the community, young and old. That's always been the case, and I still would challenge that the works that the hubs have done is absolutely tremendous. So there's initiatives, Karen, for every element of our community, and we're still just as what we have in front of us today is a couple of examples of the Youth Council and the young people's mental health, which is just something that the officers this time decided to report on. It doesn't mean that the other areas of the community aren't as important. And again, I think that I'm sure Aniela's bringing a report, an update on the community hubs in general to council quite soon, and obviously that which will come to the Scrutiny Committee. But it's the work that they're doing in the communities is the breadth of projects they're undertaking is really, really, really pleasing for all elements.
Yeah. So I'd like next time to have some more examples of the wider community in the report, if that's okay.
Yeah, I think what it does, Karen, is it picks up the key things that have happened in the quarter. That's not to say those other things aren't going on.
Oh, I understand that. Yeah. Yes, we know there are lots of things going on in everybody's community hub areas. It's just that it seemed to focus. But saying that, that's what I understand. That's why.
It's the reports the reporting on the projects that are in that area of the corporate performance and priorities. I think.
Karen, we'll ask that in terms of the demographic, that when we do the update on the hub, which will go to Cabinet, is we pick up the demographic issue. So it's clear about our ability to service all elements of the community.
If I could come in, and this isn't a criticism of South Ribble because it's not actually our responsibility, but just following on from the theme of young people, I can't help but notice when I come through Chorley on the train that they've got a youth zone supported by their council. Are there any plans for South Ribble possibly linked to our leisure strategy and community offer? Because clearly this is something that went by the wayside with the county council. So.
The answer is yes, Chair, and we're looking at it as we speak. And as I say, I think I mentioned earlier, I can't remember if I did, there's a review of leisure going to be coming forwards to the council meeting in April, and it might very much be contained within there. But I would love to see a youth hub in South Ribble, and I know something Councillor Matthew Tomlinson was looking to champion a year or two ago, but we then couldn't get the support from the county council, unfortunately. But it doesn't mean we may have to do it ourselves.
Karen?
Thank you, Chair. My question again is on paragraph 12 in thriving communities. It's about the mental health support for young people. It's very helpful, but the group of 20 young people seems to be quite small, considering the number of young people we've got in the borough. Is it going to be extended?
If there's a demand, Karen, then we don't turn anybody away. And so if you notice in the report, these are referrals that we've had into the authority from key stakeholders. So I can categorically guarantee you if there are more referrals, we'll deal with them. Absolutely.
Okay, Colin?
Yeah, thank you. Page 12, paragraph 21, Youth Council. Excuse me. Engaging young people in decision making is really important. How do we ensure the Youth Council is representative of young people generally and not just those academic high achievers?
a very, very good question. And it's something that I know Aniela's keen to encourage, that it's all elements of young people, because not just that those young people that put themselves forward, that enjoy because they enjoy the debate, don't they? So it's something that I know the Youth Council's looking at. But again, we're really keen not to interfere as well. We're trying to let the young people develop their own model here and come up with their own challenges and actually see that for themselves, Colin. So it's not an easy solution, but we've just got to trust the process and trust the kids.
I'd have to say the teacher in me would say that is not easy to do. Yeah. We've got another question though, about the Hub action plans. All the examples, this is page 13, paragraph 23, right at the end, it says all the examples there are in the Leyland area. Yet we have 5 community hubs. Why haven't those been reflected, and what would you say to the hard-working councillors in the other areas about this?
Thanks for that, Colin. I'd say look past it, because the hubs in those other areas are all doing a tremendous job as well. And there's hubs in Bamber Bridge, Lostock Hall, the eastern area, the western parishes, Penwitham, they're all doing a tremendous job. I could criticise the officers for perhaps not widening this out a bit, but I'm certain it's not being deliberate in any way. And it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, I know, your question, but the hubs across the board are doing a tremendous job. So I will speak to them and ensure that it's slightly wider demographically and geographically, when they report back next time.
I mean, we wouldn't want anybody thinking that it's all Leyland-centric, would we? So, Karen.
Thank you. My question is on page 14, paragraph 26, concerning the Community Wealth Building Programme. Please could you talk us through some tangible examples of where and how the programme has made a difference, please?
Yeah, Vicky's going to, Aniela's not available today, so Vicky, can you step in there, please?
Yes. Hi, thank you for the question. So in terms of some examples, I think the key thing this year has been about is really putting in place those foundations so that community wealth building becomes part of everything that we do as an organisation. So we've obviously developed the social value portal, which is the key way that our procurements will now be managed through the system. So that is in place, and it's capturing social value for all contracts that we procure, or for the ones that are relevant. So that portal is now in place. We're developing a toolkit to support officers with that. We've delivered some training so that all officers with procurement responsibilities know how to use that portal. And we're also supporting businesses and suppliers to be able to upload their tenders and provide the information through the social value portal. So that's been a big piece of work. We've obviously established the credit union now. So that is up and running in the town centre and providing accessible finance to the people of South Ribble, and I think we have got around 200 savers through that already. So that is starting to show some good results, and will increase in line with the business plan that they've got developed. Internally across the organisation, we've developed a training programme for staff. So that is an e-learning programme which we're encouraging all staff to complete, so that everybody has a really good baseline understanding of what community wealth building is and how it can apply in their role, so that they know when to spot opportunities to be able to take things forward. And then the piece that we're currently working on at the moment is the development of opportunities to test out cooperatives within communities and with different groups. So that's where community groups form themselves into a body that can deliver services or support for other members of their community. So that has been tried in many different areas, but what we're looking at now is what's the right way to try it in South Ribble, and how can we start to test some of that with different groups. So having initial conversations with the food banks, but then with also parent and child groups, possible businesses who may want to convert their approach to a cooperative model. So lots of examples of things there, and we're also kind of raising the profile of the work via the Cooperative Council's Innovation Network. So we've done lots of speaking and kind of blog pieces for them around the work that we're starting to do. So I think there is a full report due to come through to a future scrutiny on the Community Wealth Building Programme.
Thank you, Vicky. It's just that is there only the credit union that's really something that's a tangible issue that where the programme has made a difference? I know you've said there's lots.
Vicky, I'll take that one. No, Karen. No, we've got the social value portal, and there's the social value is a critical part of community wealth building. Yeah. And so we've put through council policies on the social value. It's about getting more social value into every element of everything that we do. So more young people getting opportunities, more pounds spent in Southwood with our local businesses, and that's now slowly developing through the procurement. And that's so the Leyland Town deal, for example, the extra care scheme next door, the social value is a critical element of the analysis when we're awarding contracts now as well.
So as the reports come through, we'll get more examples of how it's working.
Every time. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I come in there, it is unfortunate that Aniela wasn't available to come to scrutiny last week, because I think we did have some very deep delving questions on this. Perhaps if I can just pick up on the credit union. You said you've established the credit union. Isn't the reality that you invited a credit union to come in and set up a branch in South Ribble? You mentioned you've got 200 savers. What does that represent in terms of actual savings? I mean, that could be £200 effectively. And were those people not able to access savings elsewhere or access loan? I mean, that's 200 savers. How much are we lending out? That just seems to be one side of the coin. And with the reference to encouraging cooperatives, I mean, that all seems to be jammed tomorrow. That's not an example of what we've actually achieved. And then if I can move on to my question, which is references made to the social value toolkit being shared with stakeholders. Why would stakeholders buy into this, and what's being done to achieve it? I think community wealth building will be a major success when we see the likes of British Aerospace adopting it, as opposed to everything just being done by the council.
So I can come back on that one if you like.
Two secs, just a political response to some political points the chair made there. You might well find that the community wealth building is adopted by BA Systems quite quickly and other key stakeholders, because this is something that we're championing big time through the Chorley and South Ribble partnership, and they are keen to do it and they are keen to look at it, because there's just not the depth of understanding in what we're trying to achieve with community wealth building. But they're through education and through the delivery of these policies across the board, we're finding that the likes of BAE are buying into it, David, but they need us to lead. Somebody has to lead it, and somebody has to lead it and drive it forward, and it is relatively new. And the proof of the pudding's in the eating when we'll show you the stats and share what the improvements that we make. You say there's only 200 people in the credit union. We're quite pleased that we've got 200 people signed up, because that's potentially 200 people, 200 families that couldn't necessarily access the support elsewhere. But again, it's the data and the reports that we need to share with you to demonstrate that. Gary?
Well, I'll let Vicky come in. I'm quite happy to comment on the credit union because I know a little bit about it, but I'll let Vicky come back, and if she misses anything, I'll chip in.
Yes, thank you. I was just going to say we can certainly get you some more data around the credit union. We've got their monitoring reports coming through on a regular basis now that provide us with all the information about savers, loans provided, and the amount of those loans. So we'll be able to gather that together and share that. We did invite them in to come and set up a credit union, and I think facilitating that part of the work is a really important aspect of enabling that to happen. So that was, providing them with the facilities and obviously the support that we give them to deliver and develop their business plan. I think from what is about 6 months in now, we're starting to see some good progress, and we'll be able to provide some further detail on that. And then just to kind of the point around the bigger businesses taking part. We are part of, they're called anchor institutions, the bigger businesses, so the likes of BAE and the hospital are now part of a network that we are joined up to as well. And we've recently seen the hospital embed this as well within their core strategy around social value and community wealth building, which is a big step forward, given that they're one of the biggest organisations and employers in our area. So we are starting to see some of the big businesses come together, but I think more information will be provided in that report to Scrutiny. Thank you.
Yeah, I do, David, because I just want to kind of reference to the credit union, because I was a director at that credit union until I started at South Ribble. So it was always in the plan of that credit union, because it was in the common bond area. Anyway, we were always in the common bond area for that credit union to extend now. The challenge is the local model. It's a local model that gets people into the habit of using the credit union. I accept what you say about how much we loaned out. That's important because that's the way that the credit union becomes sustainable. It's the only way it sustains it. It's a 3-year model. It will take 3 years to make it self-sufficient. But the key part is saving is a key part of people joining the credit union, because you get rewarded in terms of your loans if you save. So it's about changing people's habits. People who are not familiar with saving, financial management, who find life a bit of a struggle. So saving is equally as important as having access to loan funding as well. And that's what the credit union encourages. As Vicky says, I think over the 3-year period, we'll start to see that grow. And then we'll be able to work out what the value of having a credit union in South Ribble means in pounds, shillings and pence, because people like hard data over that period.
Okay, if I can just come back there, because it was suggested I was being political. Nobody is anti-community wealth building, or some people might be. I'm certainly not. It's not a new concept. It's been around for many years. And I work for a mutual society, so I'm certainly not anti-credit union. But I think when we are putting reports forward claiming that we have established a credit union, it's not right, is it? We have invited a credit union in, and we are promoting the credit union within South Ribble, which is excellent, but we haven't set it up.
We haven't set the credit union up, and that's one of the options we looked at when we decided that actually it would make more sense to invite somebody in who's got a history of developing those kinds of services in this footprint and in this area. But you're right, we didn't set it up, David.
So all I'm asking is that the report reflects what we've actually done.
We've established, Chair, a credit union branch in South Ribble.
Correct.
And we think it was a sensible route to use an established credit union rather than a brand new one. I'll happily get the report changed.
Don't disagree, but that isn't what the report says. Karen.
We'll try and be more prescriptive, Chair, when we are reporting, to make it clear.
Again, on page 14, paragraph 27, the bulk of the council supporting businesses seems to have been around funded provided by the government during COVID. What would have happened if this funding had not been received, and what happens when the funding is exhausted?
I think that's a political question for government, Karen. Because although we have established a significant sum of our local grant funding as well that we've issued to the local businesses, but remember this council won an award for the way it administered the COVID grants through the pandemic. And whilst it may not have been, well, I'd argue it's not the government's, it's our money, it's everybody's money that we've divvied out. But the officers did a brilliant job in getting it out to the businesses as quickly as possible. And the facts are in the evidence is there about the performance of the authority compared to others in the northwest of England. It was right up there. As I say, we received a government award. We were recognised for the sterling work that the team did. But if it's the Treasury that is supporting the government, the businesses through the pandemic, and we administer it.
Can I come back on that? So I think the important thing now, Karen, is that out of the pandemic, you always look for a silver lining out of the pandemic, don't you? And if you kind of look right across the piece, we've established, not just in businesses, but in communities, we know more about our communities now than we did before. We've established new relationships across those communities. It's really building on those. And that same principle, in my view, applies to businesses. There'll be lots of businesses whom we had no contact with whatsoever. And we've seen that more recently, Paul. You've had some of the larger businesses coming to see you because they're familiar with us now. We've got relationships with them. And I think, the challenge is building on those relationships that have been established for the benefits of the residents of South Ribble. And we're already starting to see that. So.
If I can come in on page 15, paragraph 30, there's a reference there to the percentage of 16 to 17-year-olds not in education or training. What work is the council doing to directly, improve that figure and contribute to the target?
So we've established in the Civic Centre, Chair, there's the youth hub, which is directly in support of young people that need training, education and work. And I know, again, the apprentice factory, I know it's something Gary and the team are looking at, how the already established apprentice factory within South Ribble can reach out further. But if you remember, I think we mentioned this, that was either the last update meeting or the one before, that there's a particular challenge here. And we've seen the data where young people have been really adversely affected during the pandemic, and we have a responsibility as a local authority to do everything we can, not just for 16 and 17-year-olds. That's one of the measures that we track, but for all young people, David. And again, so to say the youth hub, I can't remember the correct name, terminology, Dave, I should know, but it's that we give it. It's here in the Civic Centre, and it's working really well. We've got to target these people, and we're now looking. The previous question we mentioned about our established relationships now with local businesses, and we're really feeding into them now and getting into the ribs because they want to support the young people as well. So again, it's one of the advantages, if there possibly is one, of the pandemic, is that relationship we now have, and we're linked right in with it.
Yeah, thank you. The other key relationship is with the local education provider, which is Runshaw, really. And again, they've got a new CEO there, a new principal, relatively new. He's very outward looking and outward focused. We've met with her a number of times on these particular issues to try and take them forward. So, it is performing broadly on target, but you'd probably argue, David, that 5% is too much and we should be a bit more ambitious in relation to that. Whilst it's a target, we don't stop when we get to that 5%. I think that's the point that Paul's trying to be made. We recognise that actually, we need to support as many young people, but older people as well. It's not just younger people that might struggle to get into work. There's a whole cohort of individuals that require support into work, and we work with our DWP colleagues quite a bit on this.
Thank you. You're suggesting I'm a hard taskmaster here. Karen.
Thank you, Chair. My question is on page 17. It's about the table for the number of people who are being prevented from becoming homeless is increasing. Prevention is very difficult here. Much of the work proposed, such as influencing the local plan, is longer term. What can be done to prevent homelessness now as the cost of living rise impacts?
National government, I'm trying not to be political, national government needs to get its backside in gear and support the communities properly. Universal credit needs to be, for me, at an established level that can support the community. We need to get more affordable rented homes. There's a raft of things, Karen, isn't there? But what we need to be, because we're right on the coalface here, is make sure that those poor people, when they are faced with homelessness, have somewhere to go. But again, this is where national government and local government do cross and differ. And local government, we continue to say that the national government needs to do more to prevent this. But I really worry about this. Because when you're facing 10% inflation in the next month or two, when you're facing an increase in interest rates, the cost of living is going through the roof. We've given families 150 quid towards the fuel bills. Families are seeing the fuel bills go up by £1,000 a year, not 150 quid. And I saw a stark stat this morning about the millions of young children now, as of today, that are now deemed to be in fuel poverty. It's horrendous. And so it's, again, all we can do is keep through the MPs and through challenging is the government needs to do more, and hopefully they will, but we'll always be available at the coalface, as we say, that when the people need our support, they'll get it.
I did have a question about the percentage of telephone calls answered within 90 seconds, but I think we'll move on from that. Because I think we might have flogged that one. So Karen, I'll bring you in again.
Thank you. My question is on page 18 and concerning paragraph 40, the residents' survey. Generally, the survey results are quite positive and pleasing, but how will all the results of the survey be used to help the council to improve in the future?
Thanks, Karen. The resident survey is pleasing, particularly through the pandemic, because the council has done a good job. Now what we're doing with these, we've actually brought them down into a community hub basis now as well. We've got that finite detail. And then I know Councillor Belinsky-Geld is now presenting each hub with their residents' survey, so to speak, for their area. And what it does clearly highlight is some hubs have all the hubs have different challenges, basically. And we're now looking for the hubs to help us deal with the challenges that the surveys put forward. And I think you'll find it, for once, sometimes data can just blow your mind, can't it? But this is really, really strong data, and hopefully it's going to focus, it's certainly focused the administration, but also focus the hubs now on the action plans for the next 12 months. And I think that meeting is taking place in the next week or two, actually.
Yeah, I think inevitably, Paul, from the survey, what you'll find is that lots of the rationale or reasons for dissatisfaction is not necessarily with the services that we provide. You can imagine potholes and roads and traffic appeared quite a lot on quite a number of responses as well. That's not to say we shouldn't use the data in that particular way, and we will make that available, and hopefully the hubs will take some action on it.
But that, Chair, that is a really interesting point that Gary raises, because across the board there's huge dissatisfaction with the roads and the potholes, and yet the residents are still coming to us. And I think we all find that as local councillors, that we're the first port of call. So we need to work on this, and we need to deal with it as an authority, because LCC are getting away with it ultimately, because they keep coming back to us, and we can, and it's not on, because it is a problem as well, because we all see across the board the terrible state that the roads are in. Every single time I go out and you meet the public, 9 times out of 10, they mention the potholes. And so that's most certainly a piece of work that we need to do with LCC to try and improve it.
Like the 3 Ps, isn't it? Potholes, pavements and parking. Yeah. No, that's a different recycling thing.
I mean, I've just had my council tax bill today with various enclosures, one of which is the Great Leyland Music Festival. But perhaps we could do something to try and explain to residents, I was going to say educate them, as to what each council does. And, this is your bill from South Ribble, this is what we do, and this is what the county council do or don't. There's probably more to the point.
No, totally agree, Chair, and it's something we've spoken to the comms team about, and there's a big push on that during the spring and summer, because ultimately what we don't want is slopey shoulders here. We're not going to do that, but we want the potholes fixed, for example, and so we're on it.
Okay, and finally, you'll be pleased to know, Colin.
Yes, and on a positive note, this is not a question. The feedback to members from customers visiting leisure centres appears to be more positive now. Please could we record our appreciation for all the efforts in bringing this service in-house and forming a leisure company?
Yeah, of course you can, Colin, thank you. And just to advise the committee that there's we're planning to bring a new strategy paper, an updated strategy paper on leisure services to the April council. We're trying to fast track it now.
Can I just echo that? Because I think I was the one who was perhaps sitting here saying, why can't you take a full family swimming and so on and so forth? Not had any complaints from residents for quite some time now. So I have to assume that everybody's happy. So thank you.
I'm not sure everybody's happy, but yeah, I mean, it's been people forget how challenging that was, again, during COVID. Bringing the service back in-house. We are running it differently. There are some improvements that we need to make. But in general, it's been well received, and they've done some good things in a relatively short period of time. So we'll certainly feed that back to staff. They'll appreciate that.
Do we have any other questions from members on the committee? No. Any questions from members not on the committee? There seems to be a number dialing in, and I can't see any hands raised. So, do we have a question? Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me? Yeah. I tried to ask this at the time it was being discussed, so apologies for bringing you all back. But I did want to also mention the fact that we have had residents contact us about the planning portal. And I think the planning portal's operational effectiveness is being impacted by the IT as well. So both myself and David have seen publicised the fact that people were trying to put objections into a planning application in Penwitham, and they couldn't. It was failing, and so I think it was on a Facebook post about, well, you'll have to just write in. David might just help me out there on that. But yeah, I think there's some issues with the planning portal. I've tried to set an account up and I keep getting a failure 404 number on the screen. So it appears we've got some operational issues with the planning portal, which residents who've contacted us are expressing frustration over. Thank you.
Sorry, Chair.
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think we did cover this a bit earlier, but if you want to come back.
Yeah, just quickly for Councillor Turner, Chair. It's a national issue, Angela, because the planning portal is managed by central government. I'm assuming it's centrally that we all feed into. However, what Gary did undertake, we're going to look into it and find out exactly what the challenges are. We're convinced it's not an issue with a link from South Ribble, that the portal goes up and down all the time. But we will look into it, and what we will do is we'll ensure that we get a note out to all councillors as well with an update with any issues that we're aware of and any quick patches that are required. But it is an ongoing issue nationally.
Yeah, I think what was being referred to there was we picked up off social media. It wasn't people who contacted us direct, but we picked up off social media. There was a particular establishment on Liverpool Road encouraging their customers to write in and support their application for longer hours, and people just weren't able to get in to do it. So they were having to write in. So
yeah, I need to declare an interest here.
On that basis, I suppose I better have as well, as I was in there the other night. Right, I don't think we have any public, so we haven't got any questions from them. In which case, if I could ask Darren to take us through recommendations.
Thank you, Chair. Just some themes and thoughts from the evening. Potential recommendations include the panel thanks the Leader and Chief Executive for attending and answering the detailed questions. The panel asks that an update be provided on the technical issues associated with the planning portal. The panel welcomes the reassurance that performance with ICT will improve in the next quarterly report. The panel requests further ICT training be made available to members. The panel is grateful for the offer to provide more detailed customer service performance data in the next report. The panel asks that future reports provide examples of successes from across the borough and celebrate the work of all the community hubs. And the panel asks that further consideration be given to explaining and communicating the role of district and county council and the services they provide. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, Paul, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, so can we just query, Darren, the recommendation regarding Gateway and ICT? We did say that it is improving now, but you remember the next quarterly report will cover from December through to March, and so there's going to be an awful lot of data in there. So what we said was that we are implementing successfully the projects and the programme of change, but we did state that there is improvements being made, but it's just the way it was worded then, Darren.
Darren,
I'll read it out again, shall I?
Yeah.
So the panel welcomes the reassurance that performance with ICT will improve in the next quarterly report. So I can qualify that if you wish.
Yeah, I think what we're reporting on is an improvement programme. That's what we were saying. You know, it's improvements in ICT. It's, you know, staff read these kinds of things. I think what we're reporting is, in this particular report, is there's a programme of change. We're reporting it as amber. Yeah, we're now saying that hopefully we'll get that back on track in the next month. So it's more about the programme than ICT issues, because there were no, apart from the planning reference, there were no specific ICT issues raised. I'm not saying they don't exist, but that wasn't the debating item.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm more than happy just to accept that as looking forward to an update on the programme. We're all okay with that? Is there anything anybody would like to add or remove from those recommendations? In which case, those accepted. Thank you. And thank you for your attendance. That now takes us to item 6, which is the 2021-22 Corporate Review, Budget Monitoring Report and Reserves, the position at the 31st of January 2022. And I welcome Councillor Matthew Tomlinson, the Cabinet Member for Finance, Property and Assets, along with Louise Mattinson, who is dialing in remotely. So I would invite you to present the report.
Okay, so this is as at the end of January, so it's a little bit more than a quarter, because just the timing of this meeting allowed us to have a bit more of an up-to-date figure. Obviously, it's significantly changed since the end of quarter 2, when we were projecting an underspend of 275,000, I think it was, in that it's now 1.4 million. But actually, if you take out the COVID-related stuff, the figure is a little changed, but not significantly. But what has happened in this quarter is all the work that the staff have done to support COVID recovery, or to support us through the pandemic, that the government always promised us they would pay for, has now been accounted for. The report has gone into the Director for Public Health at Lancashire, been verified and accepted. And so the £1.143 million of funding has now been agreed, and has basically come off the staff budget, because those staff have done all that work. We've now shown to the satisfaction of the Director for Public Health that work has been done and is correct. And so that funding is now been released for us. So you'll see on page 29, there's a table with the variations from budget. And while there are some relatively small variations across the directorates, the big highlight figure is COVID-19, 1.143 million. So we are now undoubtedly going to have a significant underspend on the budget. This is a one-off. Obviously, this is not going to carry on year. It's a one-off. And so it gives us an opportunity, really, to address some of the things that are in the corporate strategy as things we would like to achieve, and to set up those reserves that I alluded to at the budget meeting last month. So 30,000 for the Queen's Jubilee to support that, 200,000 further support for business, 200,000 for fly tipping and environmental improvements. I mean, I could read them all out, but I'm sure you don't need me to do that because they're in the report. But it is a real opportunity for us to address some concerns that we all have, and to assist as we hopefully come out of the pandemic at some stage. Other than that, I think without the 1.143 million pounds of COVID funding, I would have said that generally speaking, it is just a little bit it's a progression from the report that we gave you 3 months ago.
Okay, thank you. I know that you do not like putting money into capital reserves that we can't spend. So my question is, do we have the capacity and staff resources to deliver some of the activities the reserves have been allocated for?
So, I mean, you see in the staff vacancy appendix, we still have a number of vacancies. I just want to reassure the committee those vacancies are not being held deliberately. So the vacancies you see there, the money is there to fill them. You heard from the leader and the chief exec. It's not been easy to fill vacancies during the pandemic. That's not just us; it's local government generally. But we've been quite clear. We set the budget, and that money is available to spend. And I'm constantly encouraging my cabinet colleagues to spend the money that they've got available, because we do want to deliver projects. Of course, we did. Last week we had the official opening of the new playground at on Bent Lane in Leyland, and I was on there yesterday. Yesterday was Sunday, wasn't it? I was on there yesterday because the weather was glorious, and it was packed with families. So if we can deliver that kind of thing, of course we want to deliver it. Is capacity an issue? It is still, and I'm really keen, and I've always said to the projects team, I want the capital programme to be realistic. I hate over-promising and under-delivering, so I do want it to be realistic, and I'm assured that it is. There will always be slippage, whether it's the weather or especially outdoor projects. I know you in particular asked me for a date when the playground at Birch Avenue will be finished, and I refused to give you one. But because these things are outdoors quite often, and they are affected by the weather, and so some things do slip. Because the capital programme, do we want to do things in this year? Yes, we do. So we put all the money in this year, and inevitably some of it will slip over to next year because of delays in delivery. But we still will deliver those projects. We're not taking stuff out of the capital programme when it slips. We still intend to deliver.
Thank you, Adam. Yes.
In the week, didn't you? Yeah. So on that very point, we've just done a piece of kind of mapping, resourcing, and delivery programme, and we have identified some areas where we need some additional capacity, and Matt actually signed that off at the end of last week. It will all be contained within existing resources that we've got, because we are with vacancies and things, we have got some underspends, but some additional capacity into the areas where we know we need to, and we've got some gaps, and we want to deliver, particularly around things like green space, play areas, blah 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 blah, etc. So yeah, and he did sign that off last week.
I think my question about Birch Avenue is not necessarily an exact date. It was, will it be at the start of the school holidays or at the end of it? Which because I know exactly what the public will say. Oh, what a stupid time to do that, just as the kids are going back to school. But yeah, I appreciate that capacity is a problem. Karen.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question on this. I'm just looking at the vacancy sheet that we've got. Some of these vacancies have been held over for many months. And you do I need some assurances that they haven't been kept, vacant because of what's going on within shared services and other things. And when I've sometimes had to contact officers, I don't know who to contact or who's dealing with the problems. Even something as simple as going down to the Farrington Lodges, which office is now dealing with projects, problems, whatever, as other offices are moved on or other offices leave. It's like, who's taking the place? I just feel as though some vacancies have been left open. We didn't have an officer in the Leyland and Farrington hub for 6 months. I just feel as though some of these vacancies are being kept open.
The only vacancies that are being kept open are where we're in the process of or about to do a review. So we won't, I wouldn't want us to, for instance, in Gateway, we kept some vacancies. We had some vacancies and we didn't fill them because we knew we were doing a review. So what we didn't want to do is employ people and then the review that we were already starting didn't have a place for them. But once reviews are done, once, for instance, if posts are migrated into shared services, for instance, then there is no ambition or reason to keep posts empty. If we can, we will fill posts. So the reassurance I give you is that the posts that are budgeted for and which we know are secure, we will always try and fill them. And as finance portfolio, that's my job, to give that reassurance to cabinet colleagues and staff that the money is there to fill the vacancies. If there are questions about particular vacancies, I'm more than happy to take them. I'm not sure I'll be able to answer them, because if it's something in, Mick's portfolio or Paul's portfolio, we might have to get you another answer. But in general, as far as the finance is concerned, the money is there to fill these if it's the right time to fill them, and we can fill them.
So my question is on page 28, paragraph 6. It concerns the COVID reserve. Reference is made to future projects. So what kind of projects will there be, and how will this money be allocated to them?
Okay, so how will the money be allocated has not been determined yet, because it's wonderful to have a new reserve of nearly £400,000. But what I think the administration is really keen to do is to see that money working for our communities as soon as possible. So it may well be that if the business support reserve that we've already established proves not to be enough, we could release some from that. It is deliberately vague. I accept that, but it's done deliberately because we want to be flexible over the next 12 months to support our community as things open up. We all know there's, for instance, there's a raft of small clubs and associations that rely on subs and buy takings, and they've not had subs and buy takings for a significant part of the last 2 years. So if they come to us with a credible idea, I'm thinking about mainly capital type stuff that will help them to recover, then I think that's an indication of the type of thought process that we're going through. But I accept at the moment that bullet point is deliberately vague.
So we'll be having some more information in future reports. Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
I think we because the other thing, I'm really keen, we don't just confetti money around. People will need to show how their activities feed into our corporate strategy. What is it that they do that we think, around thriving communities or green spaces and play, all the kind of things that we've just been talking about in the previous report, then obviously we will be keen to release that money to people who deliver those kind of things.
Colin.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah. Page 30, paragraph 18, customer and digital underspend. Seem to be talking about digital stuff a lot tonight, don't we? The underspend in customer services, revenues and benefits, IT and neighbourhoods is significant, 306k. What is being done to minimise the impact on services, existing staff and recruit to these posts?
I think now that the shared services review has been done, I'd expect that to stop. We should be recruiting into these positions. We know there'll always be underspends, because when people leave, you can't replace them straight off. And I think at the budget last month, we increased the amount that's in the budget we increased the amount that's in the budget around assumptions for vacancies, because we always have some vacancies. There are always people leaving. When you have an organisation this big, that's just a fact of life. But it is a big saving, and it is mostly about the restructure. But that's been done. They're all migrated into shared services. Everybody who was in got a job. Since this, I know we've spent some money on agency. We've had some agency staff in to man the phones, and we've moved some staff around. Not quite sure how that will be allocated in the directorate budgets, but we have had people move from one department to another to support Gateway. But I wouldn't expect that to carry on.
Okay. Yeah, a common theme throughout the budget report is staffing, and whether it be vacancies or bringing in agency staff. We've been told how difficult the labour market is at present. So what are we doing to encourage our staff to stay and also attract new staff to fill the vacancies?
That's probably a question for the chief exec or Vicky, but she's gone. I mean,
he's behind you.
Is it? I didn't know. I thought he'd gone as well and left me to your tender mercies, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you. I think we picked that question up in the earlier question, didn't we, around Vicky responded about the people strategy, what we're going to do in terms of retention, what we're going to do in terms of training our own, where the gaps are, where the challenges are, and what we do to address some of those issues. So I know that paper is due, that plan is due to come to Cabinet in the next couple of months. So that hopefully will have the answers to some of your questions. Quite challenging, I think, in terms of retention, for some of the reasons I've set out previously about people's access to work now, and how they can work and where they can work and where the jobs are. That's going to be a real challenge. The key, I suppose, David, is paying conditions, isn't it? So do people think they are rewarded appropriately for the job that they do? We are kind of we don't have a local pay policy. There are national paying conditions, so we have little, if any, flexibility in that. We have resorted to market supplements in some areas where that's been necessary, but they are only temporary measures, usually to resolve those things. I have to say that I think there are a number of people committed to the public sector and committed to working at South Ribble Council, despite some of the challenges. So I think it will be in particular areas. I don't think it's across the board. I think it'll be in particular areas. I'm hoping that the plan that we've got will start to address some of those issues. I'll stay here.
I think just reflecting on that, it will be really interesting to see the plan when it comes out, because there are also those softer things, aren't there? If we can't pay you more because we're national levels of pay, it's what are the extra things we do? How do we make sure you're appreciated? How do we make sure you're enjoying your work? How do we tap into that commitment that some people do have to public service? Because I've stuck at a job. I stuck at a job for a bit, quite a while actually, that wasn't paying me what I thought it was worth, but I really enjoyed it, and it was a job that I thought was worthwhile doing. And I think if you can tap into that, but there's loads of little soft things. I had a chat with Asim the other day about Gateway and suggested they all get a little appreciation, a token of appreciation. Doesn't have to be much, just someone saying thank you. Here's a box of chockies or whatever. So there's all that soft things that you can do as well, because as the chief exec's just said, on the financial rewards, we're kind of tied to what we can offer.
We are, but just a reminder of the commitment that was made at the budget meeting. So we have got 2 different sets of terms and conditions for those on shared services terms and conditions and those not on shared services terms and conditions. The shared services terms and conditions are better than the other ones, and Councillor Tomlinson set out at the budget meeting the commitment to aligning all those things in the next. It will take us 12 months to do that. That's a really complex piece of work. Reviews of job descriptions, new job evaluation scheme, quite a complex piece of work. That's one of the things that Matt signed off, some commitment, some additional resources to drive forward on some of those things over the next 12 months. So that will hopefully help. I think there are some things that we do in terms of supporting staff to make it more attractive to work here. We have a discount scheme where you get a discount card for staff for lots of outlets. That helps. They've got a health scheme. We've got a health scheme here as well. People get some discount on some health services and that kind of stuff. And we are just about to give all the staff access, and this is part of the green agenda, access to a car leasing scheme that's primarily focused on green cars and green leasing cars, to kind of encourage, and that will be a benefit. That's a salary sacrifice scheme as well. So there are lots of things we're doing to try and make it attractive, and of course our hybrid working policy, which is very flexible in the main as well. Not all councils have gone down that route. Some are a bit more extreme. So our county council colleagues, for instance, were you're not required to attend work at all. Is my or location, not attend work. That's wrong. Locate in the offices at all. To those that have said, well, you know, you need to be in 2 or 3 days a week. We've been very flexible on that. And as I've said, some of the technology that we're implementing that we need to improve will allow people even more flexibility for that hybrid working model. So all those things combined, we hope, will mean that, you know, we're not getting too much distress in terms of the job market.
Thank you. I think we will look forward to the report to Cabinet. In all fairness, you know, we're not alone in this. There are businesses out there struggling left, right, and centre. It's is it a buyer's market? It's probably an employee's market, isn't it? Well, I was going to say, but there are 800 P&O staff available at the moment. But we'll not go there, shall we? So, any further questions from members on the committee? No. Do we have any members? Any questions from members not on committee? Dialing in. Can't see any hands raised. In which case, Darren, could you take us through recommendations?
Thank you, Chair. Just some reflections on the discussion. The panel thanks the Cabinet Member and Chief Executive for attending and answering the panel's questions. And the panel welcomes the update on the additional resources and capacity being invested to deliver corporate projects. Thank you, Chair.
Right. Are we okay with those? Nothing to add or remove? Yeah. Okay, if that's agreed. Item 7 is the capital programme and balance sheet monitoring. Same people as before.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to say on this really. The tables are there. You can see where we are delivering and where we're not. Other than to say that since this report was written, of course, there's been a lot of work done at, for instance, Word and Hall. So that's going to, you know, I think the comms team released a video today showing the progress that's been made there. We've started at Mackenzie Arms. So there will be some high value spend going on at the moment that will significantly increase the proportion of the capital programme that we will have delivered by the end of the year. But other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, I think we don't have many questions unless somebody suddenly pulls one out of the bag. And we're probably going over ground we've possibly already covered. But Colin.
Yeah, I mean, it says there's been 36% of the capital spend on the programme up to the end of January 2020. So we've moved on, haven't we? How confident are you that we will deliver the capital programme by the end of this financial year? Pretty confident.
I'm confident we'll deliver what we're now saying we can deliver to the best of our ability. I mean, we've been clear all this year that we've reprofiled the capital programme at the end of every quarter. So that it looks more and more realistic. You start off with ambitions at the beginning and things happen. And some of the things that I've referred to, like Werden, it won't all be finished, you know, this year. So some of that money is being reprofiled. And as I said, you know, it'll be significantly better than 36%. Let's say that.
Okay, Karen?
Yeah, again, it's just a question about Parks and Playgrounds budget being reprofiled to next year. Is there a reason why these projects have been delayed?
There's a myriad of reasons because each project will have different challenges. So Birch Avenue, if we'd done what we said we were originally going to do and just spend 75,000, we might well have got that finished by now. We certainly could have been well on with it, but obviously on that one, the public consultation said we want more than this because we've seen all these fabulous playgrounds that are going in everywhere else. That's what we want. But then because we're a democratic organisation, we have to pause, go back to Cabinet, ask for some money that has to be voted on. And I think that even had to go to full council to be agreed because it was different than the original budget. So, you know, it's right that we have proper scrutiny of all the money that we spend, but sometimes that does mean things take longer than they would elsewhere. but each project will have a different reason maybe. But these are our commitments. This is what we want to do, and we are going to do it. It's sometimes some of them take longer than we thought.
Thank you. I've always been an advocate of getting it right the first time by consulting people rather than getting it wrong and then having to rip it up and start again. So, any other questions from members on committee? No. Do you have any questions from members not on committee? Don't see any, in which case recommendations.
Thank you, Chair. The panel thanks the Cabinet Member and Chief Executive for attending and answering the questions. The panel acknowledges the significant spend on Worden Hall, the Mackenzie Arms and other projects that will be reflected in the fourth quarter's report. Thank you, Chair.
We're all okay with those? Yes. In which case, thank you for your attendance, and for those dialing in and everybody watching on YouTube, that brings our meeting to an end.